Hello, welcome back to It's All About That Bass Line. So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite bass players, tell you why he's so dad-jam cool, then talk about one of my favorite bass lines, have a quick history lesson, and then at the end of the video, I'll play the bass line.
Because you know I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass,
Today we're going to talk about James Jamerson. A lot of people who are not bass players don't know who James Jamerson is, and that's a shame, because I promise you, you have heard his work and his bass lines before. He recorded in the probably even early or late 50s, all through the 60s and the early 70s, for Motown Records. Everybody's heard of Motown. He played the bass line on songs like My Girl, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, Stomp in the Name of Love, all of those old Motown classics. He played on several of Stevie Wonder's songs. So I guarantee you've heard his bass lines before, even though you didn't know what you were listening to. Widely regarded as one of the greatest ever. James Jamerson played studio sessions for everybody, and he was part of a group of musicians that worked up in Detroit for Motown Records that became known as the Funk Brothers. And those guys were in super high demand. Everybody wanted the Funk Brothers to play on their records because they felt like it was guaranteed that it would be successful. And Jamerson's bass lines and his work in the studio had him in such high demand that if he was not available to do the studio session that day, then they would postpone it. In other words, Stevie Wonder could be coming to the studio, but if James Jamerson was not available to do the bass line, they would tell Stevie Wonder, come back later. That's a big deal. So Jamerson and his group of studio musicians he worked with, the Funk Brothers, like I said, they were very highly sought after. And there's a reason why. I saw the statistic. It was, let me make sure I get this right, Elvis, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and the Rolling Stones. Those four mega artists. They took all of their number one hits combined, and the Funk Brothers had played on more number one hits than all of those other four artists with all of their number ones combined. Pretty impressive. So that would make one think that it is a incredibly glamorous and lucrative lifestyle to be a studio musician. Well, if you thought that, you would be wrong. Studio musicians didn't make a lot of money back in those days. They didn't get paid nearly what they were worth. So all of those guys would record during the day, and then they'd all go do gigs at the local nightclubs and bars of the evenings. So that was kind of the routine. They'd play at night, and then they'd come back and they'd do studio session work during the day, and then they'd go back and play some of the clubs that night in order to make ends meet. So the track we're talking about today is Marvin Gaye, What's Going On? And this is one of Jamerson's bass lines that is genius. It's regarded as one of the greatest. I mean, it's a timeless track, and this bass line is regarded as some of his best work. Any bass player who's serious about their playing probably going to know this bass line or a pretty close rendition of it. Kind of a funny story about this particular track and this song, this recording session. Marvin Gaye, like everybody, really wanted Jamerson to play on this song. I think it was recorded it was either 1971 or 72. I think it was 72. But, and Jamerson didn't show up for the session. He was booked for the session, but he didn't show up. They decided, instead of using somebody else, let's go look for him. They thought, hey, there's a good chance he may be out doing a gig in one of the clubs or somewhere. So they go spread out. They find him. A little worse for wear. He'd had a few too many drinks. So they load him up, bring him back to the studio, and they let him listen to the song a couple of times. So he listens to it. He's too inebriated to stand up. He can't stand on his own. So he lays flat on the floor. They give him his bass. They hit record. They start the track. And the first time through, he comes up with the bass line that's actually on the record. They used the first take that he did, inebriated, laying flat on his back on the floor. Now that's impressive enough as it is, but then his playing technique also is something that's really separates him. He started on an upright bass, and then he moved to the electric bass once he started working on Motown records. So his playing style, he uses one finger. So he just plays with one finger on his right hand. That's it. Most bass players use 2, 3, 4. He uses one. They called it was nicknamed the hook, because that's how he would play. It was like that. So, lying flat on his back, drunk, first time ever playing the song with one finger, he comes up with what you're about to hear. Impressive. So enough rambling. Here it is, Marvin Gaye, What's Going On? The Mr. James Jamerson on the bass, proving once again why it's all about that bass line.